Hi, I'm Don Mooers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Montgomery County Public Schools opened its doors this fall to more than 156,000 children. Jane DeWinter, who comments regularly for this program, has this story and much more about our schools. September issue of the Beacon has a familiar person on its cover, as well as articles on health, and we love the articles on health in the Beacon. Stuart Rosenthal, the editor and publisher of this great newspaper, this great publication, will tell us about all of these stories and much, much more. The League of Women Voters of the United States and its local units are studying how we might amend our Constitution. Elaine Apter from the League will give us the background on this very hot topic. The Board of Elections is having a very busy fall. September 22nd, in fact, is National Voter Registration Day. The search is on for election judges, and Maryland will have a new way of voting in this next election. Gilberto Zelaya from the Board of Elections is here to fill us in. Well, Jane DeWinter, welcome back. Dr. DeWinter, I should say. So schools, there's so many topics, so much going on, and we still don't have a superintendent.
Right. Well, we have an interim.
We have an interim.
But yes.
All right, 156,000 plus students. As we were
biggest
talking earlier,
ever.
Biggest ever, and continuing kids from all over the world coming here with their families. How's the school system working to address their needs?
Well, this year there were the enrollment went up 2,600 students. They did open a second site for enrolling international students. For a long time, they just had one place down in Rocking Horse, and they opened another one up county in Germantown. Middlebrook site. And so, because when you come in internationally, you've got all kinds of documents.
It's crazy.
And, like the school records.
Sure. And a little bit of testing, you got and the health issues and everything else. There's
there's
lots
a lot of health,
So,
vaccinations.
all right, so we've got the international students, and there, what else is going on?
Well, there's a big thing which has affected all students, which is a later start time at all levels of school.
Right.
So,
right. The high schoolers learn better by sleeping a little more. And
yeah, I would have to say that the difference is fairly minimal. But it's 20 minutes later for high schools and middle schools, and elementary schools are starting 10 minutes later, but ending 20 minutes later, so that the elementary school day has gotten 10 minutes longer, but it's only to be used for either lunch or recess, which I think is a cost-saving measure, so that the teachers don't have a longer.
Are high school kids, any reports, are they doing better in this first week? 20 minutes more
well,
sleep?
They're probably going to do much better, since the school system, the Board of Ed just voted to abolish final exams. So yeah, I'd say that they're doing great.
I don't know you, but we never had final exams in Montgomery County Public Schools as I was going through, and it seemed to me that preparing these final exams, seemed to be a good idea if it was to prepare kids for what they were going to face at university or college. But that's not really what they turned into, is it?
Well, it isn't, in part because the school system has never really addressed study skills. Kids don't ever get deliberately taught how to take, like a semester's worth of content and go back through it and put it all together. And so I think in that sense,
like a huge oversight.
Yeah, it is. It is, and there's a lot of people, especially when kids hit middle school, parents ask for it all the time, but there isn't really any thing that they do.
Especially when one subject builds on the other, such as math, you want to make sure that they've got the basis before they go on to the next
It's
one.
not like in history. Well, history, of course, is cumulative, but still, you could have discrete units that you could know one unit very well, but in math, you have to No.
So no finals. How are they going to be able to assess the abilities of
Right.
these students?
Well, and I have to say is that kids will still see some finals in January, but in May and June of this school year, there won't be. There's actually, the board is now inviting public comment. They've got 4 different suggestions of what to do instead.
Okay.
And that they're asking for people to write in and email and, and comment on the 4 different ways.
Okay.
And
There was some suggestion in the post, in the article about this, that maybe one of the reasons is that the students had been doing so bad on math finals and had been way
Really?
under and maybe that has some reason for them doing away with it entirely. So they couldn't
How
say
well, of course, that's an extremely cynical approach, but I'm sure that is passing through a lot of people's minds that, there's been this whole thing for the last several years about, the percentage of kids passing,
Sure.
finals in
But
math.
the other thing that bothers me is what the assessment is really for. To me, it's not so much comparison as where does this child need help, and let's help this child. And I hate to lose that part of it.
Well, and I do think that the one thing also that people need to be careful of is that, 15 or 20 years ago, schools were allowed to have their own scale. They might have been giving the same final exam, but they could each designate what an A was, so that some schools were saying, okay, if you got 70%, that was an A on the final, and other schools you had to get 92%. And making a consistent level was one way of really being able to say this,
Right.
to tell that this school is not preparing its students.
And falling behind Korea and all these other countries around the world, this is all a part of trying to make
Right.
sure that we're strong. We have just a little bit over a minute. I know there's so many other topics with the schools, so let's go through those real quick.
Right. Well, they have 4th graders have a lot of new Chromebooks. There's been several schools opened with additions, the majority of them in Bethesda.
Yeah, tell us
address-
about what happened. Bethesda,
Well-
you have to have so many school classrooms if you want to develop buildings and
Right.
houses
Well,
and
there
things.
is. It's part of the growth policy that you have to have adequate public facilities for if you're going to build new housing, et cetera, in different areas. So Bethesda was in danger of having a construction moratorium, and so it was
We can't have that.
Right. So it was a scramble to build a number of additions, so that 3 schools in Bethesda got additions. There's also a big push to an outreach to Spanish-speaking parents.
Okay.
So they've redesigned a website and a new Spanish Facebook page.
Muchas gracias,
De
Dr.
nada.
De Winter. Excellent job. Thank you. I can't wait to have you back, and I want updates on how our high school students are doing with that 20 minutes extra of sleep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's find out what they're doing.
Well, mine might actually brush his teeth.
That's an improvement.
Stuart, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's lead off with the Expo coming up.
All right, right. As you mentioned, our cover story is about Tammy Darvish, who's going to be our keynote speaker at the Silver Spring
The
50
former
Plus
executive of
Expo.
Darkars.
Yes, indeed. Right. So
And-
we're talking about, by the way, the Beacon 50 Plus Expo we do every year in the
Right.
fall. We have one in Montgomery County and one in Virginia, and they're 2 Sundays apart. One's going to be Sunday, October 18th from noon to 4 at the Silver Spring Civic Center, and the other will be October 25th at Ballston Mall in Arlington, same time, noon to 4.
Is this your first year in Silver Spring at the Civic Center?
No, our 3rd year at the Civic Center.
Third year.
It's been
Okay,
a
so
great
because you'd been
location
at
for
White
us.
Flint before.
Yes, and then of course it's no longer
There's a
available.
lot of
anymore.
open
Exactly.
space there.
That's a good point. Maybe a little bit eerie.
And lots of parking.
But the Civic Center, there's a ton of parking all in downtown Silver Spring, as there is in
Yes,
Boston.
and it's free on Sundays. So
yeah,
it's
and
good.
you got the Metro is right there. It's
Sure,
not so
yeah, it's a
far
good
away.
location. In fact, it's almost too small. It's a problem. I mean, we can't. It's tight, but it's great. It's a nice event. So Tammy Darvish, as you know, as you said, had been for 30 years at Darkars. As he worked her way up to executive vice president, she is one of the 3 children of the founder of Darkars.
And face on dark car commercials.
She was the public face and the
Right.
voice and all that, right? So she's been there. She has 2 stepbrothers. So what happened, apparently, this is the story, is that the father, when he's stepping back, who had promised the kids, according to Tammy, a third each of the company,
Right.
and instead they cut her out of it, and they made the 2 boys in charge of the company, and they said, get out of here. So she had to start over, and she's in her 50s. She's devoted her life to this family company, and now she's got to find a new career. So she's done a great job with it. She's now executive vice president at Penn Fed,
Yeah.
Pentagon Federal Credit Union, which is the 3rd largest credit union in the country. It's a huge
And
company.
now the face of them. out and about.
Exactly.
So, and then Gail Sheehy. come in.
Yes. So in Virginia, our keynote speaker is Gail Sheehy, the author of Passages. I mean, she's
Right.
still writing to a certain extent on the fame of that, but she's written 17 books since then.
Right.
And her latest book that she'll talk about at our expo is her memoir called Daring,
Okay.
which is subtitled My Passages. So it's her personal story. And she's talking about how older women have really had a huge impact on the workforce and things that have changed in American business and the life in general since when she was younger. And she's doing a project. She's interviewing older women all over the country on their stories of how they broke through the glass ceiling, whatever they did in their
Fantastic.
careers. And she's putting together a nice project online for that. So.
I have a question for you about the Beacon.
Sure.
We lost the Gazette, and
Yeah.
that was the prime Montgomery County information for government and stuff. Is
Yeah.
there any way, are you at all thinking of coming in and filling that gap?
We had a
little
conversation about it just last week in our office. The problem is, in part, we're set up to be a monthly. The Gazette was a weekly, and it was delivered directly to every household. We're a monthly, and we're focused on the 50-plus population. We're not quite sure what to do about that. We have noticed that pickup of the copies in our is faster. And we run out of our papers sooner in the month now. So we think more people are looking for something to read with content, which we pride ourselves on having. But whether we'll ever replace the Gazette or be able to do that for Montgomery County, I don't know at this point.
Have you ever thought of maybe developing articles in Spanish? And the reason I say that is my mom. We get the Beacon, and she lives in El Salvador. She lives
Is that
back and
El
forth.
Beacon?
El Beacon. No, it's something else.
I'm sorry.
El Faro. And she reads and she likes articles. And one day
great,
she was
yeah.
like, maybe you should have 1 or 2 articles in Spanish.
It's one of the first things suggested to me 20 years ago,
Okay.
25 years ago, we started the Beacon. And no one on our staff speaks Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. So we said to the people who suggested it, if you can provide somebody who can translate for us or whatever, we'll consider it.
Well,
But
Google
we haven't-
Translate is pretty good
That's true.
nowadays
It's
too.
very
And
good.
then,
But
then
it's
so
not-
you do it Google
Yeah.
Translate, and then
So
you
we're
just send
online.
it to
They just go to our
somebody.
website.
You send
Yeah.
it to somebody.
Mom,
to
I think we
check
got. I
it.
think we got our.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I think
recruit
we
my
got
mom
our-
now.
So tell us more about what's in this.
Okay,
in
it's
this.
another interesting article on Alzheimer's and sleep. The research has shown that there's a connection between lack of sleep and Alzheimer's, and it works both ways. People who get less sleep, sleep apnea victims, for example, are twice as likely to get mild cognitive impairment, which is a precursor often to Alzheimer's. And they find that the more a person has, now that they're finally able for the first time to really look inside the brain of living people and see how much amyloid and tau proteins you have tangled in your brain while you're still alive. It used to be only on
Right.
autopsy. So now they can see that, and they see that the less people sleep, the more amyloid they have. If they have
Wow.
problems sleeping, they have bigger
Is that
buildup.
reversible? If you start getting more sleep, can you push
They're
them back?
working. They're trying to figure that out because they
Okay.
found in rats that they process and the brain gets rid of amyloid during sleep. So the more sleep you get, the more it gets rid of, and the less sleep you get, the more that it builds up, and the less you remember the next morning. If you have higher amyloid in your brain, then you don't remember as well overnight. So it's
Interesting.
all connected. And we don't really know which comes first, or if they just both keep affecting each other, which is what it seems likely.
That's fantastic.
It is,
I
yeah.
saw. I go into this, but there's travel to the Balkans. I mean, right at
That's our travel
and you've got money suggestions in there.
Always,
You had this wonderful calendar on dividends.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and you had that with each month. My father, that's how my parents. That's how their parents get. They wait every month. They get their checks in.
Right.
They invested in
It
these
makes
stocks.
so much
coming in.
sense.
That's
and
and that's
considering
how,
what you're getting in the bank nowadays, there's no point. in
No,
moving
it's a
your
great
money.
thing.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Listen, so much. This Beacon is fantastic,
Thank
as
you.
it is every month. Thank you, Stuart. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back. Elaine, Apter.
Hi there.
I think our show is always better when you're on.
Well, thank you. I enjoy being here.
We're a tricky subject.
Oh, fascinating.
Secretary Clinton has talked about constitutional amendments
That's
on
right.
campaign finance.
Correct, and she's not the only one that's done that. So the league, 2 years ago, we were ahead of it,
Right.
said if they're talking about a constitutional amendment, let's see what the actual process is. And it's been fascinating.
Well, I'm going back to my college, my high school days. I
Right.
remember it was Congress passes a certain number of votes,
Two-thirds of
two-thirds
both
and two-thirds,
houses.
and then it goes out to be ratified.
By the states,
But
3/4.
we're talking about something that doesn't have much chance of going through Congress 2/3, because we're talking about campaign finance reform. that these guys are not. That's the lifeblood of their
Okay,
campaigns.
then you've got the back door, and that's when 2/3 of the state legislatures call for a constitutional convention. If that happens, Congress has no choice. They must call a constitutional convention. This has never happened in the United States except once, when the Constitutional Convention was called to look at the Articles of Confederation, closed doors, threw it all out, and we have the Constitution of the United States. So there are people that are kind of panicking and said, you know, this would open up, if you had a constitutional convention, it would open up the
change
whole
everything.
Well,
Constitution.
because the voter or election finance isn't the only thing that's been in the news lately in terms of
Right.
taking away the right of people born in the United States to be American
birthright,
birthright
yes.
citizenship has been also
Correct.
thrown
And
around.
The,
Interesting.
best thing about that, not the best thing, but the most interesting thing is Article 5, which is what talks about amending, is basically one sentence long. It's a long sentence, but
Right.
it's one sentence. It gives no parameters for a constitutional convention.
Right.
And so basically, the states, what happened before is the states would choose delegates, and it's the delegates that would actually set the rules
Right.
at this point. But you make a wonderful point, Jane, is we need 2/3 of the state legislatures, but what if 1/3 wanted the birthright and 1/3 wanted campaign finance? You put them together, is that 2/3 for a convention, or do you need 2/3 with one subject? I mean, these are just some of the wide open things.
But let me ask you
that
this:
are
if it's
fun.
campaign finance reform, my understanding of state capitals and state legislatures is if we think that the campaign finance has been a problem in Washington on Capitol Hill, the stink is even worse in the state capitals. So do you see, does the league see much of a chance of this happening in 2/3 of the
We're just
capitals?
looked at the process, but I don't think so. And then the other thing is, even if you had this wide open convention, don't forget you need 3/4 of the state legislature to ratify whatever happened in the convention. So some people say, if the states call for a convention and we have a convention, you still have that backup of the ratification.
Right.
So don't panic completely.
Well, we're not panicking here.
No.
We're Montgomery Week in Review. We're right here with you, Elaine.
Well,
Apter.
and then we have another fun thing is in the balanced budget amendment, we were almost there. 32 out of the 34 states actually said they want a constitutional convention. But in the next period of like 10 years, 16 of those states rescinded. And then by 2009, basically, 8 had gone from applying to rescinding to applying. How do you count those?
I don't know,
I
Elaine.
don't either. That's
And that's
what's
what
so
we look to the league
fascinating.
for.
And that's what we're looking at. So it really is a fascinating.
How are you doing it? Are you bringing in experts or historians?
No,
or-
League does does all their own research. We do have some fact sheets. We have background information, and we've gone to our members this past week with consensus questions all over the board on what kind of parameters maybe would you have for a constitutional convention. What would
Okay.
make a good amendment?
So people
Okay.
should
What
join the
could
league
you
if they want to have an
support?
input on
Yes,
it.
Hey,
and next month
Elaine?
it's campaign finance.
Perfect. Our parameters are such that we have to call it quits.
Oh, God.
We could
Could
talk
go
for
on
hours,
forever
couldn't we?
on this one,
Let's
yes.
let's do that.
Okay, you got it.
Lunch on me.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Elaine Apter. Dr.
How are
Gilberto
you?
Zelaya
Good day.
from the Board of Elections is here.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Lots of stuff going on this fall and leading up to the presidential elections. A lot of changes, great changes. We just need to make sure that our voters are ready.
So
and
let's go back.
prepared.
Let's
So
put
take a
let's set
step
the
back.
scene a little bit. We had a lot of concern, and we've seen in the newspapers. You can hacking and electronic and moving around. So concern about the electronic balloting.
Yes. So then what happened in 2008, the state legislature passed legislation to have a paper verifiable voting system.
Okay.
Because of the recession, the economy, the technology, and also the need to have a federally certified voting system.
Okay.
Years passed. We weren't at that crossroads, but now we are.
Okay.
So, for the last a little over a decade, we've been voting using this voter
Right.
access card. That goes away. So now voters will have two forms of voting for the upcoming presidential elections and the city of Rockville. Okay.
Okay.
So during early voting, you will vote. A ballot marking device will be a sheet of paper.
No. While you're doing this, people can go in and they can look and see. I guess there's a website.
Yes, they could go to our website, 777vote.org. We have a demo there. They could also go to the Maryland State Board of Elections website. They
Okay.
could also call my office, and we could give them information and literature and links
Okay.
in different
And
languages.
it's all right there on the internet that just to find, yeah.
Yes, but then
Different
also,
kinds
not
of
everyone
profiles.
has the internet, so we're doing a lot of outreach.
Okay.
So I invite organizations to contact me, and if it's an expo or a fair or a festival, a health fair, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be election related or candidate related. It
Right.
could be anything. We will take our team to demo the equipment. It's a two-part equipment. We have the ballot marking device, which
Okay.
will mark the ballot, and then we have the optical scan unit, which will scan the
So
ballots.
someone comes now, they'll come and they'll register. Are
They
you on
check in the
list?
same
Check
way.
in the same
Yeah,
way.
same way. They could check in the same way.
And
then
the sticker saying I voted is waiting for them at the end of the rainbow.
at the scanner,
At the end.
yes.
Okay. So between just getting in your signing in and getting your proud sticker
The voting
that you voted, what happens?
So it happens, obviously you check in. Then depending if it's during early voting on election day, you will get exposed to two systems pretty much. The first one would be the ballot marking device during early voting.
What's
You
a
will
ballot
go-
marking device? Is that
so
a
it's
pencil?
like a touch screen. It's like
Touch
a touch screen, yes.
I was gonna say,
but it
is
has
it
a printer.
pencil?
Yeah, no. So you would go to one of the ballot marking device. You would select your selections. It's ADA compliant. You could magnify the screen. You could do contrast for colorblind voters. You could have audio. You have a sip and puff also adapter that will work with that equipment. So the whole issue is your constitutional right to a secret ballot. Okay, so once you've made your selections, you would hit print, and then the actual device will print your selections
Okay.
on this sheet, and then you would take this sheet to the optical scanner.
Okay.
There'll be a optical scanner judge. There's a privacy screen that you'll be given, so you're not in line waving all your candidates and all your selections. Then you'll insert this into the machine, and it will count. Now, during election day, we will have a ballot marking device at every precinct for ADA purposes, and every single registered voter who will not use the ballot marking device will get an optical scan. It's almost like voting by mail. Okay, same in the pen, and then they will make their selections. So it's paramount that individuals review their sample ballot, so they know exactly who they're going to vote for,
Okay.
and if they're going to vote or against, the ballot questions. Because
Okay.
if you do that in front of the equipment, it takes longer.
So you're marking with a pen.
Yes, you
then
mark with a pen,
in a
and then you
bubble.
take this same
Okay.
to the same optical scan unit, and you will scan that. You'll be given a privacy screen. If there's any issues, if you undervoted, if you're overvoted, then the election judge will be there to assist. If you did an X or a check mark as opposed to filling in the blanks, they're there also to assist, and they need to. They will give you another ballot, and they would void the one you have, and they'll give you another ballot so you could go into the privacy screen and vote.
So there's no hanging chads.
No, it's all
And
optical
so
scans.
you guys are keeping the
Yes,
this form.
so on the
a
equipment
person
itself, it's
doesn't-
a safe kind of compartment. And then we're right now developing the SOPs as it pertains to bringing them back to the Board of Elections. The equipment themselves, the optical scan unit has 2 thumb drives, and that's where the results are. Those will be taken to the Board of Elections, and the other one will be taken to an off-site center where we would use State Board of Election equipment to upload the results. And the goal would be 11 o'clock to have results, unofficial results.
Right.
Because we still have to do the canvass and count the vote by mail ballots, et cetera. And we have to research the provisional ballots as well.
So this seems in a way going a little backwards. We're going into this time of everything being digital and everything being online, and here we are going back to paper. What's the logic to this?
Well, the logic is because in 2007, 2008, there was this conversation that individuals wanted a receipt that showed that they voted or who they voted for. But if you drop that receipt, then someone behind you could see who you voted for. And there was a lot of kind of discussion around that.
Give about 20 seconds.
Okay,
Final
so
words.
basically we have a paper verifiable system for
Right.
2016 City of Rockville. Please contact the Board of Elections. We would love to work with everyone,
Okay.
business, nonprofits,
Okay.
faith-based, et cetera. and give us a call and let's take this machine circulating in the community.
It is the reality.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Back to the future. That's what we'll call it, the Back to the Future system. Listen, you all, thank you for joining me this week, and thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us in this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores, inviting you to join us next week at this very same time.